The great hall of the Veltharan Empire glowed like a sunrise made of crystal and silver. Towering spires of glass reflected soft blue light, and alien nobles filled the space with whispers. Their tall armored forms stood proud, their skin shining like polished stone. They were the strongest race in the known galaxy, at least that was what they believed, and today they had a guest. A human. The name of the human was Rian. He was not tall, not heavily built, and not wearing armor like the others. His clothes were plain, a mix of light gray fabric and soft boots from Earth's military branch. Yet as he walked through the long hall under the eyes of hundreds of alien nobles, his steps were calm. His eyes did not look down. He walked as if the entire universe could stare at him, and he would still not flinch. At the end of the hall sat the Queen of Velthara upon a throne that floated in the air. Her crown glimmered with energy crystals that pulsed softly with her heartbeat. Her eyes were like twin storms, calm but dangerous. The queen had ruled her empire for nearly 2 centuries, and no one had ever seen her show surprise. She believed no other race could match Veltharan power, especially not humans, who were seen as fragile newcomers to the stars. When Ryan stopped before her, the court grew silent. The queen leaned forward slightly. "So," she said, her voice clear and cold, "you are the representative of Earth?" Ryan bowed his head slightly. "Yes, Your Majesty. My name is Rian, from the planet Earth. I come to prove that humanity deserves a place among the great powers of the galaxy." A faint laugh rippled through the audience. A few nobles exchanged mocking glances. One of them, a tall warrior with golden armor, whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "He looks more like a servant than a soldier." The queen raised her hand, and silence returned instantly. She studied the human for a long moment. "Many species have come here to earn my respect," she said. "Most failed. Why should I expect your kind to be any different?" Ryan's face remained calm. "You may test me, Your Majesty. Judge not by what I look like, but by what I do." The queen's eyes gleamed. "Very well. If you wish to be tested, you shall be. Prepare the first trial." The crowd stirred. Drums echoed across the crystal walls, and golden doors opened behind the throne. The first test was called the gravity pit, a chamber where the pull of artificial gravity could crush even metal. It was designed to test physical endurance, strength, and focus. Veltharan soldiers trained in it daily, but few could last more than 15 minutes. Even they often left trembling and gasping for breath. As the queen rose, she looked down at the human. "You may still step back," she said softly, almost kindly. "If you continue, you may not walk out again." Ryan's reply was simple. "Humans don't step back, Your Majesty. We move forward, even when it hurts." The queen gave a short nod. "So be it." The gravity pit, the chamber, was a circular room made of smooth metal. The air shimmered with the hum of the graviton field. Ryan stepped into the center while alien engineers adjusted controls on a glowing console. "Start at 50, the queen ordered. A heavy weight pressed down instantly. Ryan's knees bent slightly, but he stood firm. 70, she said after a moment. The field thickened. The air grew heavier and his breath became slow. The floor groaned beneath him. 85. Ryan took a deep breath, the muscles of his arms tightening. He could feel the crushing force pushing down on his lungs, trying to make him fall. But he didn't move. He remembered the stories of humans before him, of miners who worked under oceans, of astronauts who endured pressure beyond reason, of people who climbed mountains where air could not be breathed. The queen watched closely. The alien nobles leaned forward. They expected him to collapse soon, but he didn't. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. At 30 minutes, sweat rolled down his face, but his expression remained calm. The engineers looked uneasy. One of them whispered, "He should not still be standing." The queen raised her hand. "Increase it to 100. The chamber lights turned red as the field reached its limit. The sound of grinding metal filled the air. Even the Veltharan soldiers outside the chamber shifted uncomfortably. But inside, Rian still stood, shaking slightly but not falling. He lifted his head and smiled faintly. "Is this all, Your Majesty?" A ripple of shock spread through the hall. The queen's eyes narrowed, but she did not look angry. Instead, there was a hint of something else. Interest. "Enough," she said quietly. The gravity field shut off with a loud hum. Ryan dropped to one knee, breathing heavily but alive. When he stood again, the crowd erupted in murmurs. One alien whispered, Impossible. No human should endure that. The queen looked down at him. You have endured what even my warriors cannot. How? Ryan wiped the sweat from his face. We humans grew strong because our world never gave us peace. We fought cold, hunger, storms, and time itself. If we fall, we stand again. That's how we live. The queen said nothing. But behind her calm eyes, something had changed. She had seen pride before, arrogance, anger, even fear. But the human's calm strength was something new. The whisper of the court. After the first trial, Ryan was escorted to a rest chamber, though he refused to sit. The alien nobles continued to talk among themselves. Some still laughed, saying the human had only survived by luck. Others were quieter, thinking of how he had endured something none of them could. The queen's closest advisor, a tall warrior named Thorin, approached her throne. Your Majesty, perhaps we have underestimated these humans. The queen's expression remained calm. Perhaps, she said. But one trial does not prove greatness. Prepare the next. What shall it be? The mind reach, she said simply. Thorin nodded slowly. The mind reach was a psychic test, a deep mental link where two minds would face each other. Few aliens could handle the power of a Veltheran mind. The queen's champion, a trained telepath named Sarath, would test the human next. As Thorin left to prepare, the queen looked once more toward the chamber where Ryan rested. Her expression was unreadable. For the first time in many years, she felt curiosity. The human's reflection. Ryan stood before the wide window of his chamber, looking out at the alien city that sparkled under three suns. The buildings floated like islands of light, connected by bridges of energy. It was beautiful, but it was not home. He touched the small medal pinned to his chest, a token from Earth's first space explorers. It reminded him why he was here. Humanity had struggled for centuries to earn its place among the stars. Many called humans weak, reckless, emotional. But those same emotions, hope, love, courage, were what gave them strength. He whispered softly to himself, "Let them see who we really are." A soft sound came from behind him. A young alien attendant, no older than a child, stood nervously with a tray of water. Her small eyes looked up at him. "Sir, does it not hurt?" "The gravity test?" Ryan smiled gently. "It does. But pain is just a teacher. We learn from it." The girl tilted her head. "You are strange, human." "Maybe," he said with a grin. "But strange can be strong." She giggled softly before hurrying away. Ryan turned back to the window. The suns were setting and their light turned the city gold. He knew tomorrow would bring harder trials, but he was ready. The queen's thoughts in her private chamber. The queen stood before a great mirror of silver water. Her reflection shifted with her thoughts. She could still see the image of the human standing in the gravity pit, refusing to fall. For centuries, she had seen strength as something born of power, muscles, weapons, and control. But the human had shown something different. His strength came from endurance, from spirit. It was quiet but unbreakable. Her advisor returned. "Everything is ready for the mind reach tomorrow." The queen nodded slowly. "Good. Let us see if the human's mind is as strong as his body." She looked once more into the mirror and whispered to herself, "Ryan of Earth, show me what makes your kind rise from dust and still dare to stand before the stars." Outside, the alien city glowed softly in the night. Above it, the stars watched silently, the same stars that once looked down on Earth. Somewhere among them, the first sign of true understanding between two worlds had just begun to shine. The next morning, the twin suns of Velthara rose high, their light washing over the palace like liquid gold. The crystal towers gleamed, and the city below shimmered with soft blue lights. But inside the royal hall, the air was cold, heavy with silence and expectation. Everyone was waiting for the human. Ryan entered the great chamber once again. He wore the same simple clothes as before, though his boots were now dusty from the long corridors. The alien nobles whispered among themselves as he passed. Some still doubted him, others watched with quiet curiosity. The story of his first trial, the human who survived the gravity pit, had already spread across the city. Now he faced the second test, one far more dangerous than the first. It was called the Mind Reach, a psychic challenge that broke even the strongest minds. The Queen's challenge. The Queen of Velthara sat upon her throne, calm and radiant. Her voice filled the hall. Ryan of Earth, she said, you have proven that your body can endure great pain. But strength of body is not everything. The mind, that is where true power lives. She turned her head slightly toward a tall figure standing beside her throne. The alien was thin but elegant, his eyes glowing faintly with silver light. This, the queen said, is Sarath, my personal telepath and guardian of the royal mind. You will face him in the mind reach. If your will falters, your thoughts will shatter. Ryan bowed his head slightly. I accept. Sarath looked down at the human, his voice soft but cold. You are brave to step into a battle you cannot see. Ryan smiled faintly. Sometimes what we cannot see is what shapes us the most. A low murmur spread across the audience. The queen's eyes narrowed with interest. Begin, she ordered. The link of Mind's 2 chairs were placed in the center of the hall. Ryan sat in one, Sarath in the other. A ring of glowing light formed around them as the psychic field activated. The air grew still. The sound faded away and the hall seemed to vanish into silence. Then Sarath reached out with his mind. The alien's psychic energy struck like a wave, invisible but powerful. It pushed into Ryan's thoughts, searching through memories and feelings. For Sarath, reading minds was easy. He had done it to hundreds before. But this human's mind was different. He found fire. Not real fire, but something that burned quietly. A fierce determination that refused to break. Every time Sarath pushed deeper, he saw images flashing before him. A small boy standing in rain, refusing to give up. A young soldier holding the hand of a dying friend, promising to continue. A man standing under the stars, looking up with hope, not fear. Sarath frowned. Strange, he muttered. Ryan said nothing. He sat still, his eyes closed. Inside his mind, he could feel the alien presence moving, pressing, testing. It felt like cold wind cutting through his memories. He remembered what the queen had said. If your will falters, your thoughts will shatter, so he held firm. He imagined his mind as a wall of stone, built from everything that made him human. Love, loss, courage, and the will to survive. The battle of Will Sarath pushed harder. The psychic energy flared, visible now as blue light around their heads. The court gasped as waves of power filled the room. Even the queen leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp with focus. Sarath's voice echoed in Ryan's mind. Your kind is weak. You live short lives bound to a single small world. You should kneel before those who are stronger. Ryan's reply came quietly but firmly. Strength isn't about ruling others. It's about standing up even when you're alone. The energy pulsed stronger. The two minds clashed again, alien discipline against human emotion. Sarath tried to drown Ryan in illusions, showing him images of defeat. Earth burning, his people falling, his own failure. But Ryan didn't let go. He remembered the faces of those he loved, the beauty of his world, the laughter of children, the voice of his mother telling him, never give up, he whispered. We rise every time we fall. Suddenly Sarath gasped. For a moment he saw something strange. The human's memories glowing brighter than any psychic light. Each memory carried feeling, deep, warm, unstoppable emotion. He had never felt anything like it before. It wasn't power. It was heart, the turning point. The audience could see the struggle now. Blue and white energy twisted in the air between them. Ryan's chair trembled and a faint light pulsed around his body. Sarath's face was tense, sweat glistening on his brow. The queen whispered to her advisor. He resists Sarath's reach. Impossible, Sarath growled. Show me your weakness, human. Ryan's voice echoed softly, both in the air and in the psychic space between them. My weakness is what makes me strong. Then the wave broke. Sarath screamed, not in pain but in shock, as he was thrown backward out of the psychic link. The energy ring shattered with a bright flash. The hall filled with silence once again. Ryan sat still for a moment, breathing slowly. His eyes opened, calm and steady. Sarath, kneeling on the floor, looked up at the queen in disbelief. His mind, it's like fire. It doesn't yield, it burns. The queen stood from her throne, her long robes whispering across the floor. She walked down toward Ryan. The court bowed their heads as she passed. When she reached him, she looked directly into his eyes. You resisted a royal telepath. No outsider has ever done that. Tell me, Ryan of Earth, what gives your people such strength? Ryan rose to his feet. His voice was soft but sure. We don't have power like yours. We don't live long and we aren't the strongest. But we have one thing that never dies, hope. Even when the universe tries to break us, we keep believing that tomorrow will be better. And that belief makes us strong. The queen said nothing for a moment. The hall was silent, waiting for her judgment. Then she spoke quietly. Perhaps I have misjudged your kind. The respect of the court. The nobles who once mocked him now watched in awe. Some lowered their heads respectfully. The queen gestured toward Sarath, who stood again, still shaken. Sarath, what do you see in him? Sarath hesitated. I see a spirit that refuses to kneel. It is terrifying and beautiful at once. The queen turned to Ryan. You have passed the second trial. There remains one more before your kind can claim honor before my throne. But I must confess, human, you have made me curious. There is more to you than I thought. Ryan bowed slightly. Thank you, your majesty. Humanity has many flaws, but we never stop trying. The queen's lips curved just slightly, the smallest hint of a smile. We will see if that will carries you through the final test. The calm. Before the final trial later, Ryan stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city. The air was cool and the light of the 3 moons painted everything silver. He felt tired, but inside his heart was steady. He thought of home, the blue oceans, the green forests, and the people who looked to the stars with hope. He whispered, "This is for all of us." Footsteps sounded behind him. It was Thorin, the queen's advisor. The tall alien stopped beside him, his expression unreadable. "You have done what none before you could," Thorin said. "You made Sarath lose control." Ryan looked at him calmly. "I didn't want to hurt him. I only wanted to show that we are more than what others think." Thorin studied him for a long moment. "Your people may be weaker in body, but I begin to think your strength lies elsewhere." "Perhaps the queen sees it too." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe one day she will understand." Thorin nodded slowly, then left without another word. Ryan turned his gaze back toward the stars. He could see distant planets, their lights like tiny sparks in the dark. Somewhere among them was Earth, small, fragile but alive, he thought. They call us weak, but they don't know how strong it is to keep hoping. The queen's reflection in her private chamber. The queen stood before her silver mirror again. She could still see the human's face in her memory, calm, brave, unbroken. For years she had ruled through power and fear. No one had ever stood before her with such quiet courage. Her thoughts whispered through the stillness. This human, his kind, does not fight to conquer. They fight to survive. They fight to protect. That is strength I cannot measure. She looked up at the stars, her voice low. Perhaps the universe has underestimated them. Outside, lightning flashed softly in the distance, lighting up the clouds in gold. A storm was coming, the final test would soon begin. And deep within the palace, Ryan prepared himself. Whatever came next, he would face it. Not for pride, not for fame, but for every human who ever dared to dream beyond their world. The day of the final trial had come. The skies above the Veltharan capital glowed with streaks of gold and white as energy banners waved across the horizon. The entire city was alive with excitement. It was not every day that a human was allowed to face the arena of light, the most sacred ground of the Veltharan Empire. The queen herself stood at the center of her balcony, her gaze fixed on the grand circular arena below. It was carved from crystal stone and surrounded by thousands of spectators. The air trembled with sound and power. This was not a trial of words or mind. This was a trial of battle. The queen's announcement. The queen raised her hand and the crowd grew silent. Her voice rang across the stadium like a bell made of steel. "People of Velthara," she declared, "today we witness the final test of the human envoy, Ryan of Earth. He has passed the trials of gravity and mind. Now he faces the trial of strength, the arena of light. Here, there will be no tricks, no mercy, and no retreat. Only truth." The crowd roared, some in excitement, others in disbelief. Many still thought the human would fall easily. The queen turned to her right. Standing there was a figure taller than any soldier Ryan had seen. The queen's champion, Commander Vorsk. His armor gleamed with blue fire and his 4 eyes glowed faintly beneath a heavy metal crest. He was known across the stars as the Breaker of Worlds, undefeated in combat for 20 years. Rian looked up at him calmly. "So this is the one I'll be facing." Vorsk's voice rumbled like thunder. "I will end this quickly, human. It is not personal. It is the law of strength." Ryan gave a faint smile. "Then let's test what that law really means." The beginning of the battle, As Rian stepped into the arena, the floor came alive with glowing circles of energy. The walls hummed with light. A shield dome formed above, locking the two fighters inside. The queen lowered her hand. Begin. Vorsk moved first, a blur of motion that shook the ground. His energy blade roared to life, leaving trails of lightning as it swung toward Ryan. The human jumped aside just in time, the blade cutting through air and burning a line into the crystal floor. The crowd gasped. Ryan had no armor, no blade of his own, only a simple metal staff. Still, his movements were sharp and precise. Vorsk attacked again, faster. Ryan rolled, ducked, and used the staff to deflect a strike. The sound echoed through the arena like a hammer against iron. Sparks burst around them. "You are quick," Vorsk said, "but speed will not save you." He swung again, a heavy blow meant to crush. Ryan blocked it with both hands, the impact throwing him backward. He hit the ground hard but stood again immediately. The staff had bent, but his eyes stayed calm. "We humans don't fight to win every time," Ryan said between breaths. "We fight to learn, to adapt." The human's strategy, as the fight continued, the pattern became clear. Vorsk relied on strength, massive, direct, powerful strikes. Ryan relied on reading movement, on precision and timing. Every time Vorsk missed, Ryan learned more about his rhythm. When Vorsk attacked again, Ryan used the broken half of his staff to strike the commander's leg joint. Sparks flew. The alien staggered for a brief moment. The crowd gasped again. No one had ever touched Vorsk in combat. Vorsk growled. "Enough games." He raised both hands, and two energy blades ignited in a cross of blue light. He swung with fury, the arena flashing like a storm. Ryan dodged, his steps light and quick. He didn't meet strength with strength. He used the queen's own arena against her champion. When Vorsk's blade struck the ground, the energy reflected off the crystal and rebounded. Ryan used that moment to push forward, striking Vorsk's shoulder plate. A small crack appeared. The queen leaned forward on her balcony. Her eyes narrowed, but her expression showed no anger, only growing respect. The turning point, Vorsk stepped back, breathing heavily. His armor was strong, but his pride had been touched. "You fight like a machine," he said. "No fear, no hesitation." Ryan's voice was calm. "It's not a machine. It's focus." He dropped what remained of his staff and stood empty-handed. The crowd murmured in confusion. Vorsk tilted his head. "You fight me without a weapon?" "I don't need one," Ryan replied. "Sometimes the mind is the sharpest blade." Vorsk roared and charged again. His speed was tremendous, his power overwhelming. But Ryan waited. Every movement, every sound, every spark mattered. And just as Vorsk swung, Ryan stepped to the side, catching the alien's own momentum. He used the force of Vorsk's strike to redirect it into one of the arena's energy pillars. The pillar exploded in bright light. The crowd shouted in shock. The blast sent Vorsk sprawling backward. His armor flickered as his shield generator shorted out. Ryan stood still, breathing slowly, his face calm despite the pain in his arms. The arena lights dimmed for a moment, then steadied. The final blow, Vorsk rose again, his armor damaged, his pride burning. "You are no ordinary human." Ryan's expression softened. "None of us are ordinary. We just don't stop." Vorsk let out a growl and lunged one last time, aiming a strike meant to finish it. But Ryan moved faster, not through strength but through instinct. He ducked, stepped inside the arc of Vorsk's blade, and pressed his hand against the control panel on Vorsk's chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue energy around the commander flickered, overloaded, and burst into a wave of light. The crowd shielded their eyes. When the light faded, Vorsk was on one knee, his armor cracked open. His blades went dark. Ryan stood before him, exhausted but still upright. The arena was silent. Vorsk bowed his head. "I yield." The silence broke. Thousands of aliens began to cheer, some in disbelief, others in awe. The queen rose from her throne, her voice echoing through the hall. "Enough. The trial is complete." The queen's judgment. Ryan turned toward her as the shield dome faded. His breathing was rough, his body bruised, but his spirit unbroken. The queen stepped down from her balcony, walking toward him. Every alien bowed as she passed. When she stood before him, she looked into his eyes, not as a ruler looking at a subject, but as an equal looking at another soul. "You defeated my strongest warrior," she said quietly. "You fought with no armor, no fear, and no hatred. Tell me, Ryan of Earth, what gave you this strength?" Ryan wiped the sweat from his face and smiled faintly. We humans learned long ago that the universe doesn't give us peace. We had to make it ourselves. Every time we were pushed down, we stood again. Every time we were told we were weak, we proved otherwise. That's what strength means to us. Not power, but endurance. The Queen listened in silence. Then she turned to her court and raised her voice. Let it be known across all stars, she said. The humans of Earth have earned their place among us. They are not weak. They are not fragile. Their strength lies in their heart, and their courage knows no end. The hall thundered with applause. Even the warriors who once laughed now bowed their heads. The Queen placed her hand over her chest in the ancient sign of respect. To you, Rian of Earth, she said, I give the title of Starborn Envoy. You carry the spirit of your world with honor. Ryan bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. Humanity will remember this day, not as a victory, but as a beginning. The aftermath as the crowd began to disperse. The Queen stood alone at the edge of the arena. Thorin, her advisor, approached quietly. You saw it, didn't you? He said softly. The Queen nodded. I saw it. Their strength is unlike ours. We seek perfection. They seek purpose. That is why they endure. Thorin looked at the human walking toward the exit, his steps slow but steady. He changed how many see them. Perhaps even you, my Queen. The Queen's eyes followed Ryan. A faint smile touched her lips. Perhaps, she whispered. Even the stars have learned something new today. The human's reflection. Later that night, Ryan stood once again on the balcony of the palace. The city glowed below him, the stars above burning brighter than ever. The wind carried the faint sound of music, alien voices singing in harmony. He thought of Earth, of the people who waited, who hoped, who believed. He thought of the Queen, of the respect she had finally shown. He whispered quietly, We came here as strangers. We leave as equals. For a long time, he simply watched the stars. Somewhere out there were millions of worlds, each with their own strength, their own struggles. And among them all, humanity had finally been seen for what it truly was, and small, yes, but unbreakable. After the grand spectacle of the arena of light, the palace seemed quieter than ever. The alien courtiers whispered in the halls about the human, Rian of Earth, the one who had defeated Commander Vorsk, the strongest warrior of Velthara. Yet despite the excitement, the Queen felt a strange emptiness. Something about the human lingered in her thoughts. That evening, the Queen summoned Ryan to her private chambers. No armor, no audience, no trials, only the two of them in the vast expanse of the palace. Ryan entered calmly, his steps measured. His face showed fatigue from the day's trial, yet his eyes were bright with determination. He bowed slightly. Your Majesty, he said, you summoned me? The Queen regarded him silently for a long moment. Her chambers were filled with light that shifted and shimmered like liquid silver. Outside, the city gleamed under the twin moons. You have shown strength beyond what I imagined, she said at last. Strength of body, endurance of mind, and courage unmatched, but... Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. I do not understand why you fight, human. Why does your kind endure when all logic would say you should fall? Ryan stepped forward, choosing his words carefully. We fight because we must. The universe is vast and often cruel. Our world is small and fragile, but if we give up, we vanish. If we fall, we rise again. That is how humanity survives, not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to surrender. The Queen listened silently, her expression thoughtful. She had ruled the stars for centuries, seen countless civilizations rise and fall, and yet she had never heard words like these before. Words not of power, but of purpose. The conversation. The Queen gestured for Ryan to sit. He hesitated for only a moment before obeying. Tell me more, she said. Why does your people's spirit endure hardships that seem impossible? Ryan took a deep breath. Because we are connected. Each person carries the memory of those who came before, and the hope of those who will come after. When one falls, another rises. When one fears, another fights. Our strength is not just one person. It is the sum of all our hearts, all our will. The Queen's eyes softened as she considered his words. She had always thought strength was measured in weapons, in armies, in psychic power. But this was something different. Your kind does not seek to dominate, she said quietly. You do not conquer for glory. You fight to endure. Yes, Rian replied. And to protect. To keep hope alive even when the universe tells us we cannot. The Queen was silent again. She stood and walked to a window overlooking the alien city. Her hands rested lightly on the frame as she looked at the lights below. "Perhaps we have been wrong about humans," she whispered. Rian looked at her, curious. "Wrong?" "Yes," she said. "I have ruled for centuries, and I have never seen such resolve. Your body can endure, your mind is sharp, but your spirit, that is something my people have never measured, something we may have underestimated." A test beyond combat. The Queen turned back to Ryan, her eyes intense now, but not with judgment. "I have one more question, human. This is not a test of body or mind, but of heart. Why do you face such trials with calm courage? You could have failed and fled, yet you stood your ground. Why?" Ryan paused, thinking of Earth. He thought of the small farms and towns, the schools, the oceans, the forests. He thought of the children who dreamed of stars, the workers who built ships, the scientists who studied the universe. And he thought of his family, his friends, and the countless humans who faced danger every day simply because life demanded it. "I face trials because others cannot," he said softly. "I face danger because someone must. Our lives are short and the universe is vast. But if even one human stands, that means the hope of many survives. That is why I endure. That is why my people endure." The Queen's hands tightened on the frame of the window. She had ruled countless empires and faced countless threats, yet she had never felt a weight like this. Not of power, but of spirit. "And you do this willingly?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. Because if we do not, no one else will. Courage is not just in the strong. It is in anyone who refuses to give up, no matter the odds." For the first time in centuries, the Queen said nothing. She simply looked at Ryan, and he looked back, steady, unyielding, honest. The Queen's reflection. That night, the Queen walked alone through her chambers. Her steps were quiet against the crystal floor, and the air seemed to hum softly around her. She thought of the human, of his calm courage, his quick mind, and his unbreakable heart. For centuries, Veltharans had measured strength by power and control. To her, the strongest had always been those who could dominate, who could bend others to their will. Yet Rian had shown her something new, that true strength could come from resilience, hope, and the refusal to surrender. She paused before a tall mirror, watching her own reflection. Her crown glittered, but it felt lighter than usual. "Perhaps the universe is teaching me something," she whispered to herself. "Perhaps I have misunderstood the human race." Her advisor, Thorin, appeared silently behind her. "You seem changed," he said. "I am," she replied. "This human, Rian, he is not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most powerful. But his courage surpasses any army, any telepath, any warrior I have ever seen. He carries his world in his heart, and that is something I cannot break no matter how hard I try." Thorin bowed his head. "Then you see why the Council of Stars should welcome humanity as equals." The Queen nodded slowly. "Yes, it is time to recognize what they truly are. Not weak, not fragile, but unbreakable." The human's humility, meanwhile, Rian rested in his chamber. His body was sore from the trials, but his spirit felt light. He thought of the Queen's questions, and a smile appeared on his face. He had never sought glory or recognition. He had only sought to show the truth of humanity, that they could endure, that they could rise, that they could face impossible odds and still stand. He picked up a small hollow image of Earth, a gift from the first explorers who had returned from the stars. The blue oceans, green lands, and white clouds glimmered in the light. He whispered softly, "We carry our home with us, no matter where we go," and somewhere, far above the galaxy, the Queen watched silently, realizing that she had just learned a lesson she would never forget. A new respect. The next morning, the Queen called her council together. The nobles gathered, many still astonished by the human's feats. "I have seen what no Veltharan has seen before," she said. "Rian of Earth is not the strongest in body or mind alone. His strength lies in his spirit. That is something our kind cannot measure. We have underestimated humanity for too long." A murmur of agreement swept through the council. Some nodded slowly, others still looked uncertain, but none could deny the truth. The Queen continued, "Let it be known. Earth is no longer a small, fragile world. It is home to a people who endure, who rise, and whose courage can inspire entire civilizations. Ryan has shown us this, and for that, he and his kind deserve our respect." The council fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in, the human and the Queen later. Ryan was summoned once more to the Queen's private garden. a place of silver trees and flowing streams, floating above the city like a world of light. The queen approached him, her steps slow, deliberate. "Ryan," she said, "you have taught me more in these days than centuries of rule ever could. You have shown me that courage and hope can surpass strength, and that spirit is mightier than power." Ryan bowed lightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I did not do it for you. I did it for my people, for humanity," the queen nodded. "And yet by showing me, you have changed more than just one ruler. You have shown an empire the truth of a race." Ryan smiled faintly. "Then perhaps the galaxy will see what we truly are." For the first time, the queen laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. "Perhaps it will." The lesson of humanity as the moons of Velthara rose high. Ryan stood beside the queen in the garden, looking out over the city. The light sparkled below like stars fallen to the ground. He realized that his mission had become more than survival or trials. He had shown an alien empire what humanity could endure, that courage, hope, and spirit could leave a mark even on the strongest of civilizations. The queen, silent beside him, watched as he spoke quietly to himself. "We rise because we must. We endure because we have no choice but to fight. And we fight not to conquer, but to live, to protect, to inspire." The queen's gaze softened. She understood now. Humanity's strength was not in war or weapons. It was in heart, will, and spirit. And for that, even she, the mighty queen of Velthara, was left speechless. The sun rose over Velthara, its golden light spilling across the crystal towers. The city below was alive with whispers, excitement, and wonder. Every alien in the capital knew the tale. A human had faced the arena of light, had endured the gravity pit, had resisted the mind reach, and had defeated Commander Vorsk. The story of Ryan of Earth had spread like wildfire, leaving every listener in awe. The nobles of the court, once skeptical, now bowed their heads in respect. Even the queen's closest advisors marveled at the quiet courage of a species they had considered weak, but Ryan himself remained humble. He did not seek praise, only understanding. His mission had always been to show the truth of humanity, that even a small, fragile world could produce beings capable of endurance, courage, and unwavering will. The queen's decree. The queen summoned the council to the grand hall. Her robes flowing behind her like liquid silver, she stood before her people, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Today," she announced, "the human Rian has proven what I once thought impossible. His kind is not weak. Their strength lies not in weapons, armor, or numbers. It lies in the heart, will, and courage of each individual. From this day forward, Earth shall be recognized among the honored worlds of the galaxy." Gasps filled the hall. Some whispered excitedly. Others bowed low. The announcement was unprecedented. No outsider had ever earned such respect from Velthara's queen. Rian stood quietly at the edge of the hall, eyes lowered in humility. The queen walked to him and placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have changed my empire's understanding of strength," she said softly, "and for that, you will be remembered among the stars forever." Ryan nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. But it is not just for me. It is for all of humanity." A celebration of courage, the city celebrated for days. Streets glowed with light and music filled the air. Alien and human alike watched in amazement as stories of Ryan's trials were shared across the palace's holoscreens. Children pointed excitedly at the arenas where he had fought. Soldiers studied his movements, trying to understand how a human had endured what no Veltharan could. Even Commander Vorsk, once undefeated and feared, visited Rian to bow in respect. "You have shown us what courage truly means," Vorsk said. "I have fought the strongest in the galaxy, yet today I witnessed something I never expected, a human's heart." "It is unmatched," Ryan smiled faintly. "We all carry something strong inside us. Sometimes, it just needs a chance to show itself." The queen's reflection alone in her private chambers, the queen gazed out over her city. The events of the past days had left her thoughtful. For centuries, she had measured power in strength, speed, and intelligence. She had never considered spirit, the quiet, unyielding force of determination and hope. Ryan had changed that. He had shown her that a small species, underestimated and dismissed, could hold within it a courage unmatched by any weapon or telepathic skill. She whispered to herself, "Perhaps I have judged too harshly. Perhaps the universe has more to teach me, through humanity." A soft smile touched her lips. the first in decades. The human envoy Ryan's duties were not yet complete. As the first human recognized among the honored worlds, he had the task of establishing peace, communication, and cooperation. Yet he approached this not as a conqueror, but as a representative of hope. He traveled through Velthara's grand libraries, meeting scholars and historians. He shared stories of Earth's people, of resilience, of kindness, of endurance through hardship. He taught the Veltharans that strength was not only in conquest but in protection, courage, and unity. Many listened intently, some skeptically at first, but gradually, the alien empire began to understand. Humanity was small, yes, but unbreakable. The alliance of worlds. The Queen called for a grand assembly of the galaxy's leaders. For the first time, humans and Veltharans stood together in a display of respect and unity. Let it be known, the Queen declared, that Earth and Velthara shall stand as allies, bound by respect, courage, and the acknowledgement that strength comes in many forms. The applause was thunderous. Ryan watched quietly, feeling a sense of pride, not for himself, but for every human who had ever dared to hope, to fight, and to endure. A historian from Velthara recorded the events for generations to come. They called it the Era of Courage, a time when humanity had proven its worth not through dominance, but through heart, endurance, and spirit. The legend spreads across the galaxy. Stories of the human envoy spread. In distant star systems, aliens spoke in whispers about the small human who had defeated the greatest Veltharan warrior. In training halls, soldiers practiced his movements, studying how one being with no armor or great size could outlast the strongest. Bards and storytellers shared tales of Ryan's courage. In marketplaces and halls of learning, children learned that true strength could come from hope, courage, and willpower. The legend of a human standing before an alien queen unyielding became a symbol for generations to come. Even the queen herself would recall Ryan in quiet moments. She would look at the stars and remember the human who had taught her that strength was more than power. It was endurance, hope, and spirit. The departure. When the trials ended, Ryan prepared to return to Earth. His mission was complete, but the bonds he had formed would last forever. The Queen walked with him to the palace's observation deck. "You carry your world with you," she said softly, "and in doing so, you have carried a lesson for all of us. Strength is not only in might, it is in spirit, in courage, in hope." Ryan bowed. "I will carry this lesson with me, and I will share it with my people." The Queen's eyes softened. "Go, human. Let your world see what lies beyond the stars, and know that you have left a mark on Velthara that will never fade." With a final nod, Ryan boarded the small transport that would take him back to Earth. He looked at the city one last time, the crystal towers shining in the morning light. Somewhere deep inside, he smiled. Humanity had shown the galaxy its true strength. Homecoming, when Ryan returned to Earth, he was welcomed not as a hero alone, but as a symbol of humanity's courage. Leaders and citizens alike celebrated not only his victories but the values he had represented: endurance, hope, and unwavering spirit. He shared stories of Velthara, of the Queen, of Commander Vorsk, and of the trials he had faced. Children listened wide-eyed, inspired. Adults remembered that even in the darkest times, courage could shine through. Humanity had proven itself not by war, but by endurance, spirit, and heart. The legacy years passed, but the story of Ryan's trials never faded. The alliance between Earth and Velthara grew strong, fostering trade, knowledge, and mutual respect. The Queen often looked at the stars, recalling the human who had shown her that courage could surpass power. Ryan returned to Earth, but his impact remained in every corner of Velthara. Schools taught of human endurance, soldiers trained with respect for the qualities that made humans unique, and the story of a single envoy from Earth became legend, a tale of hope that traveled across the galaxy. Even the youngest aliens, hearing of the small human who stood unbroken, learned a vital truth. Strength is measured not only by power but by spirit, courage, and the heart to endure. A quiet hero, Ryan stood once more on Earth, gazing up at the stars. The galaxy stretched before him, vast and infinite, and somewhere among those stars, the Queen of Velthara watched silently, remembering the human who had left her speechless. He thought of the people of Earth, of those who had dreamed, struggled, and endured. And he knew that the greatest strength of his kind was not in ships, weapons, or technology, but in the unyielding spirit of humanity itself. He whispered softly, "We are small, but unbreakable." And with that, the legend of Rian of Earth, the human who stood before an alien queen and showed the true meaning of strength, spread across the stars, inspiring countless generations in every corner of the galaxy.